There's been deadlock at the United Nations over Syria for the past 4.5 years. But as delegates converge to hear speeches from the world's most powerful leaders, hopes of some kind of diplomatic breakthrough. From the colour of New York to the carnage of Aleppo, and a reminder of what's at stake. Last week, 18 people were killed when the Syrian army launched a missile attack on a residential neighbourhood. That's why Syria is emptying out. That's why the European migrant crisis is so chronic. And the rise of the group calling itself Islamic State has heightened the sense of urgency. In a move to break the stalemate, Barack Obama arrived saying he's prepared to work with Russia and Iran over Syria, and signalling a new stance towards a president who isn't here in New York, Bashar al-Assad of Syria.
We cannot look backwards.
After long insisting, Assad had to step aside immediately. The Americans are now indicating he can be part of a transitional government.
Yes, realism dictates that compromise will be required to end the fighting and ultimately stamp out ISIL. But realism also requires a managed transition away from Assad and to a new leader.
Making his first appearance here in 10 years, Vladimir Putin, a president isolated internationally because of his annexation of Crimea. But his deployment of Russian forces to bolster Assad has made him impossible to cold shoulder.
We must join efforts to address the problems that all of us are facing and to create a generally broad international coalition against terrorism. Similar to the anti-Hitler coalition, it could unite a broad range of forces.
On the sidelines this morning, David Cameron met President Rouhani of Iran, another indication of the new willingness to work with long-time adversaries against Islamic State. And like the Americans, the British are saying that President Assad doesn't have to go immediately.
What we need now is obviously an intensification of the attacks on ISIL. It's absolutely vital that they are driven out of Iraq, that they are driven out of Syria, and at the same time we need a stepped up political process and a solution to this terrible conflict, and one which sees the end of Assad.
There is a diplomatic opening here. President Obama knows that Syria is a blight on his legacy. President Putin sees the chance to reassert himself on the international stage. We're not going to get a solution here in New York this week, but we may be witnessing an end to the stalemate, although not on American terms. Nick Bryant, BBC News at the United Nations.